Skeletons of the Marital Closet by Tang. Chapter 1381. He did not expect Gale's request. He thought that she was his daughter, and girls were always soft-tempered, soft-hearted, kind, easy to be persuaded, and easily swayed. As long as he was a little more pitiful and humble, Gale would not make things difficult for him. Unexpectedly, she did not leave any room for negotiation. Seeing Matthew's hesitant look, Heather probably understood. Wanting to save Natalie was as difficult as climbing the sky, almost impossible. Matthew went to intercede, and she made a fuss 2 or 3 times, but to no avail. Heather began to cry. "I want you to talk, Matthew. What a useless man. You can't even do such a little thing. You can't even keep your own daughter. What kind of chairman are you? I have been following you for so many years. I have no name or status. I even gave birth to a daughter for you. I dedicated all my youth to you. In the end, what have I gained? Now I only want my daughter, and you can't even give her to me. Hurry up and think of a way." Heather kept shaking him. "Go and beg Gale. Kneel down to her. You can go to Mary and ask her to come forward. One sentence from her is better than our 100,000 sentences. Help Natalie. That's your daughter. You've grown up watching her. She can't die. She's still young. She still has a long life to live." Shawn was impatient. He winked, and the security guards immediately understood. Taking advantage of Heather's inattention, they quickly rushed over from behind, cuffed her hands behind her back, and walked out with her. "Heather!" Matthew was terrified. "Be gentle. Don't hurt her." He quickly chased after her. Gale let out a sigh. "Huh? What's wrong?" Shawn asked. "I'm very glad that Mary is not here. Otherwise..." Seeing that Matthew cared so much about Heather, Mary must feel so sad. Gale remembered that Matthew never cared when Mary fainted or trembled with anger. It was so obvious who he loved. Speaking of which, Matthew and Heather truly loved each other. The two have been secretly together for so many years, but they have kept in touch. "Mary should be glad that you are back, and she has seen the true face of Matthew. She can start a new life again." Gale sighed. "I think it could be good if you can spend your whole life without knowing it." It was a pity that Matthew could not hide it for the rest of his life. He loves Heather so much that he is probably already planning to have a divorce with Mary when a suitable opportunity arises. She guessed the opportunity Matthew was waiting for was after Aram and Natalie got married. At that time, Natalie would be the rightful Mrs. Lefting. And if he could rely on her husband's family, he could arrange for Heather and Natalie to meet and then tell Mary about the matter. However, God was fair. Matthew would not succeed so easily. Chapter 1382. Heather refused to leave. She lay on the ground, so the security could only drag her like a rag doll. The security guards blocked Matthew and could not get in at all. He could not even touch Heather's clothes. Matthew was very anxious. "She has a bad spine. She can't be treated like this. Let go." Seeing that they were about to reach the door, a person walked in quickly from the outside. He pushed aside the security guards, lifted Heather from the ground, and handed her to Matthew. Matthew's eyes lit up when he saw someone coming. "Aram, it's you! You're finally here!" "Uncle, what is..." Aram asked. Matthew was suddenly at a loss for words. How should he introduce Heather? "That's Natalie's mother. Her name is Heather," Gale said. Aram was taken aback for a moment. Natalie's mother? It was the first time he met. How could this woman compare to the dignified and noble Mrs. Yarn? It even ruined Orm's marriage. Matthew was a little embarrassed and did not make a sound. Heather looked at Orm with bright eyes. "You are Natalie's fiancé? Finally, I saw you. I only saw photos before, or glanced at them from a distance, but I never had the chance to get close. Oh, you are really handsome, and you are so talented. No wonder Natalie." Heather pushed Matthew away and quickly stepped forward to grab Orm's hand. "You must save her, please." Orm withdrew his hand with a somewhat indifferent attitude. He heard that Matthew had come to Wood Group, and he was worried that something would happen, so he came here in a hurry. Unexpectedly, Matthew brought Heather with him. That would explain what he had just seen. He did not have any affection for Heather. "Natalie is a good girl. She is suitable for you. She is also the daughter of the Yarn family, isn't she? She is confused now. If you enlighten her well, she will correct her evil ways and live a good life with you. She is virtuous, able to manage the house, and she is devoted to you. Mr. Lefting, you can't find a woman who loves you more than her." Heather flipped her lips and chattered non-stop. Even Gale felt she was noisy. It was because Aram had cultivated himself well that he did not interrupt her. Aram knew about Natalie's background and naturally knew about Heather's existence, but he never expected to meet her today. He suddenly understood why Gale's face was full of disgust when she talked about Heather. She was really hard to like. Gale looked at Aram. "2 days ago, you were at your house with Natalie, so you haven't seen her. Her skills are not inferior to Natalie's." Chapter 1383. He knew that Aram needed help. Therefore, he stopped Aram. Before Aram could reply, Shawn raised his chin. "If you want to take them away, that's fine." Aram paused. "Mr. Wood, since Uncle and Heather are here, I have a request." "How about no?" Shawn directly refused. Aram sighed. "I want to let Heather and Natalie meet. After all, they are related, and they haven't met each other yet. Maybe Heather can persuade Natalie?" "So many people have persuaded her. Has it worked?" "Then at least let them meet. That's all I ask," Aram said. Matthew looked at Gale anxiously. Aram even begged for mercy. "She should agree, right?" "I only ask once, that's all," Aram said again. Gale looked at Shawn. "What do you think?" She could not agree without permission. She wanted to ask for his opinion. "If Heather and Natalie are not allowed to meet, she will make trouble again. If she goes to Mary, she's going to make her angry again," Gale said. Gaily, "Heather can't be satisfied. If you allow her to meet Natalie this time, and next time, she will make trouble again and ask you to let Natalie go. Even if you let her go, she will come asking you to accept Natalie into the Yarn family. Heather would continue to make trouble to achieve her goal." Heather also wanted Natalie and Aram to continue to fulfill their marriage contract. She also wanted the assets of the Yarn family, and she even wanted to take the position of Mrs. Yarn. To deal with this kind of person was not to give her any hope from the beginning. Otherwise, she would only become more and more greedy. "I won't let Natalie go. Heather won't dare even think about it," Gale said. "Then, if Aram told you to let Natalie go, I won't make any request to embarrass Gale. What I've been doing all along is to hope that Natalie will return over a new leaf, pay the price for her mistakes, and start a new life. On this basis, give her another chance, instead of letting her go free unconditionally," Aram said. He was afraid that Gale would not know what to say and that she and Shawn would argue, so he hurriedly explained. He did not even want Gale to answer such verbally embarrassing questions, so why would he make such an unreasonable request to let Natalie go free? Aram was always thinking about Gale, even though he knew that Gale owed him a lot of favors. As long as he begged her, Gale would definitely let him take Natalie away. However, that was not what Aram wanted. Aram also has selfish thoughts. He wanted to see Natalie live a normal life as an ordinary person, and he also wanted Gale. He wanted it all. Matthew echoed. Yes, yes, Gale. I have always wanted Natalie to admit her mistake, apologize, realize how many things she has done wrong, and sincerely repent. Look, arrange for her to meet with Heather first, so that Heather can persuade her. Heather was also very discerning and nodded immediately. Yes, I'll persuade her. Maybe it will be useful. Gale smiled mockingly. Matthew, you said the same thing last time, and then you let Natalie go. Do you think I have forgotten it? Chapter 1384. I tried to persuade her last time, but she didn't listen. She will listen this time? Matthew clasped his hands together and kept begging her. It's different this time because Natalie can finally see her biological mother. If you are worried, just send someone to keep an eye on her, and you don't have to leave her. Aram looked at her quietly all the time, waiting for her answer. It was hard for Gale to agree. She looked sideways at Shawn. Do you agree? Shawn reached out and wrapped his arms around her waist, clasping his fingers tightly. His fingertips were slightly white. After a while, he nodded. Okay. Heather was overjoyed and looked at Aram very gratefully. Mr. Lefting helped. To see Natalie have such a good fiancé is heartwarming. She had regarded Aram as her son-in-law. The more she looked at it, the more she was satisfied. She thought that Aram must still have feelings for Natalie when he helped Natalie so much. Then she would teach Natalie a few tricks how to capture a man's heart. At that time, Heather would be able to stand out from the crowd of so many women and stand firm beside Matthew. So Heather thought she wanted to teach Natalie. It was hard to find a high-quality, good man like Aram. Aram said in a neutral tone, Natalie and I have broken off our engagement, Miss Heather. Heather's smile froze. She said, It doesn't matter. This fate can be continued. Natalie is confused now, just needs a shake. She smiled cheerfully and looked at Matthew again. You still have a good eye, and you picked such a good son-in-law. However, Aram had already turned around and walked out. He did not want to get along with Heather at all. Seeing this, Heather quickly followed and grabbed Matthew again. Let's go! Why are you still standing there? Gale watched them leave one after another, and then asked softly, Shawn, I didn't expect you to agree. I didn't want to embarrass you. Shawn had already seen it. Gale clearly knew that he would be unhappy if she agreed. However, if she did not agree, it would hurt Aram again. After all, what Aram proposed was just a small meeting. She was in a dilemma, carefully maintaining that fragile balance between him and Aram. It was hard work for her. She still took his feelings into consideration and did not blindly favor Aram. It was just that this balance would be broken sooner or later. Her heart could only be given to one person. Since Gale gave Aram her heart, then she should stand with Aram unconditionally. Shawn did not like the feeling just now. He did not need Gale to carefully protect his self-esteem and take care of his feelings. That was not love. It was pity and charity. What Shawn wanted was never pity and charity. Next time, you don't need to ask my opinion. Shawn withdrew his hand and hung it by his side. I don't like you taking my feelings into account so carefully. Gale was stunned for a while before she understood. Did he think she was asking for his opinion on purpose? No, Shawn, Chapter 1385. Shawn interrupted her. Okay, I understand. You don't need to explain. gaily. If this continues, you will be very tired. Tired? He turned around and met her gaze. The person you love is Arum, but the person you marry is me. You keep him in your heart, but you still want to stay by my side. We are not divorced, and we have children. Gale, you are suffering every day, right? Shawn thought that it was the lingering last night that confused him, giving him the illusion that he could still get her again. She never took the initiative. It was always his unilateral desire to have her. I know you love Aurum, and I also said that I will allow both of you to be together. The divorce was just pushed back because of Grandpa. It doesn't matter. I will talk to Grandpa. When the affairs of your family are settled, you can return to them, claim your identity, and fulfill your marriage contract with Aurum. I will cooperate with you in the divorce process at any time, Shawn said. Gale was completely dazed. Why did Shawn say such things suddenly? Just because she just asked his opinion but was misunderstood by him? She wanted to explain, but he did not listen. What was the matter with this man? She took it upon herself, and she was not happy. He was not happy when she discussed it with him. Shawn! Gale was a little anxious, and her mind was a little messed up. She did not know where to start. Gaily, a person can only love one person. One heart can only be attached to one heart. You should go back to Aram and love him freely. Forget about me. Because your little care to me is charity. I would rather send you to Aram with pain than with this little care of charity, which will make me feel that I am very, very humble, very low, very cheap. If he were not compared to Arum, Shawn would still think that he was still special in Gale's heart. However, once he and Arum appeared at the same time, it was clear at a glance who was more important. His position in Gale's heart became insignificant. What Shawn wanted was the only one because what he gave Gale was the only one. The only one. However, he did not reap equal love. So, stop being stubborn. Let it go. Shawn took a step outside. He did not look into Gale's eyes, so he did not notice the astonishment and helplessness in Gale's expression. Shawn, she called him. However, he walked too fast and did not hear her at all, and soon disappeared from Gale's sight. Gale bit her lower lip heavily. She understood that Shawn was not angry, but disappointed. He really thought she loved Arum. He thought that she was asking for his opinion and discussing it with him just to go through the process and take care of his feelings. She would agree to Arum's request in the end. However, if Shawn did not agree with Heather and Natalie's meeting, she would not agree either. Chapter 1386. She really cared about his opinion. Gale stomped her feet. Shawn! She yelled again and went straight after him. Shawn had already walked down the steps of the company's gate. His back was tall and straight but aloof. Hearing Gale's voice, he paused and slowed down. Gale caught up with him. Shawn, I think you misunderstood me this time. He lowered his head slightly. The hair on his forehead drooped down, and his thin lips were slightly pursed. Really? I really respect you and care about you, so I discuss everything with you and ask for your opinion. Because you have given me enough rights, I will also give you enough respect. Well, I know it's to take care of my feelings. Gale raised her hand and tugged at the corner of his clothes. I mean, you are respecting me because you love me. Then, in the same way, I also respect you, and I also love you. Gale was still a little embarrassed to say these two words so directly. Her cheeks flushed slightly. She was not as unrestrained and open-minded, and she was still shy when expressing her love. However, Her silence, to Shawn, meant something else. You do not have to repay me because I love you, and I do it voluntarily. Gaily, you should follow your own true inner thoughts and do what you want. I will support you, Shawn replied. After a pause, he looked up at her. And you don't need to consider my feelings, let alone ask me deliberately. Because no matter what, as long as you ask, I will agree. Shawn, get in the car. I'll take you to Aram's house. You arranged for them to meet at Aram's house? Yes. Gale plucked up her courage, but still wanted to explain things clearly now. However, Shawn did not give her this chance. As soon as she opened her mouth, Shawn said, gaily, I know very well that once Natalie admits her mistake and Aram asks you to give Natalie a chance, you will say yes. I will still get your opinion. Gaily, I still say the same thing. You can do whatever you want, and I will support you unconditionally. Gale shook her head. No, your opinion is very important. I'm not important. Aram is important. You and him. He and I. One is the old love and the other is the new love, right? Shawn still could not help but caress her face and rub her skin with his fingertips. Gaily, I used to feel that. As long as I get it, even if I snatched it, it belongs to me. Now, only now did he understand that there are some things that cannot be snatched away. What does not belong to him does not belong to him after all. It was Gale who taught him love and let him experience love. Chapter 1387. What Shawn wanted was true love. However, Gale's heart belonged to Aram. What he got was the respect she said. What was the use of respect? What he wanted was love. He did not even wanted to appear in front of Gale with Aram in the future. Gale sighed. You are overthinking it and ignoring me. Forget it, Shawn. I'll talk to you later and explain it. She would tell him she never liked Aram. What she said at that time was out of anger, just for the divorce. She also wanted to tell him about Joshua. She would do it after settling Natalie's matter first, and Heather. Shawn and Gale walked into the Aram's house side by side. Matthew and Heather immediately stood up. Mr. Wood, where is Natalie? Why did you choose to meet here? Wouldn't it be better and more convenient to go to my house? Matthew asked. Shawn replied coldly. That is Mary's house. Does Heather deserve to step in? Heather was not happy, but she did not dare to refute it, so she could only suffer from this anger. In the future, only Mary would be allowed in the Yarn's house, so she won't be in the presence of such dirt. Shawn bent down and sat down on the sofa. Matthew tried to put in a few good words. Mr. Wood, Heather should not go to Yarn's house, but... Shawn interrupted him. You still speak for them? Do you think you deserve to go back to the Yarn family? Matthew was startled. His surname was Yarn. He was the uncompromising master of the Yarn family. And he could not even go back to the Yarn family? It turned out that Mr. Wood meant that the Yarn family only belonged to Mary and Gale. Gale, this isn't right. I can't even go home. I am the head of the Yarn family. I presided over the construction of that villa, and it was my painstaking efforts. Heather said in a low voice, There's no Yarn family without Matthew. Gale sneered. Fortunately, Mary was not present. Otherwise, she would faint from anger. Talking to these heartless, shameless people sure was tiring. The Yarn family succeeded because of Matthew? Without Mary, would the Yarn family and Matthew have what they are today? Gale asked. Matthew replied, Yes, Her family has helped me a lot, but it is also because of my efforts that the yarn group is thriving. If Mary had followed the arrangement of her family back then and married someone of the right family, wouldn't she be much better? To put it bluntly, with Mary's resources, even if she married a poor man, she could rise to the top and become a billionaire. Matthew was just riding in her limelight. He was just a cheating man who had no strength of his own. Gale, you can't say that. Your mother and I have been a couple for more than 20 years. You are our child. How can children persuade their parents to divorce? Matthew felt a little bit of blame. A husband like you cheated, betrayed, had an illegitimate daughter. Now he is asking his original wife to raise the illegitimate daughter. Chapter 1388. His daughter sided with Mary instead. Does Gale have no sense of family anymore? Just as Matthew was about to say something, he felt a cold gaze sweeping toward him. He met Shawn's eyes and immediately trembled, lowered his head, and did not dare to say more. With Shawn's backing, who dared to be presumptuous in front of Gale? He was the most powerful backer in the world. Only Gale could have it. Shawn just needed to sit there casually, and no one could ignore him. Matthew, just sign the divorce agreement so as not to go to court and make it too ugly. You can't get anything from the Yarn family. You married Mary for what you are worth now. Get out of the Yarn family, Gale said. What did Matthew have at that time? He was poor. That won't work. Even if you get divorced, the joint property in the marriage must be divided. If Matthew had no more money, why would she still follow him? She was also defending her rights. She would not live a hard life. Gale asked, what marital property does Matthew have? Everything he owns was provided by Mary and her family. That's half of his work. Take it to court, Heather said. Heather, this divorce lawsuit is fought by the best lawyer in the Wood Group. Our chances of winning are too small. We still have to fight. How could we admit defeat? Gale smiled. You can appeal, and I'll fight to the end. If it's a peaceful settlement in private, I can also consider giving a bit. Matthew asked, how do you want to solve it privately? Divorce Mary, leave the house, leave Sea City with your mistress, and never come back. Then, what about Natalie? Matthew was still greedy. Mary was determined to divorce, and Gale also supported it. It did not matter as he still had a family with a woman and children. For the rest of his life, if he could live with Heather and Natalie by his side, that would be pretty good. Gale knew what he was thinking. Do you still want your family to be whole? Yes, I want money and I want my family too. Anyway, I'm tearing myself apart, and at this point, I want everything, Heather replied forcefully. Unexpectedly, Gale agreed. Okay, I will give it to you if you want it. Both Matthew and Heather were stunned. Heather snorted. Really? Don't make fun of me. Yes. Heather was a little excited. If she got the company, she would be rich. Fortunately, Matthew was thinking of the big picture and sighed. The current yarn group is on the verge of collapse. Even if I take over, I will only be in huge debt. Only Gale could afford it. Chapter 1389. She would receive investment and support from Wood Group, and the company would grow stronger than before. However, if the Yarn family fell into anyone's hands, it would be devastating. Heather smiled. You can afford it, Matthew. You forgot that we still have Mr. Lefting, your son-in-law. She turned around and looked at Aurum. Mr. Lefting, a rich young master like you, has a very wide network of contacts. In the future, Natalie will be with yours and run yarn group together. How great it is! Aram had nothing to say to Heather. He had emphasized several times that he and Natalie had broken off their engagement long ago. In the end, Heather chose to ignore it. At this time, Natalie's voice came from the door. How could we still get married? She walked in slowly. Probably because there was no seizure, Natalie's complexion improved a bit, and there were no new wounds on her body. Heather hurriedly turned her head to look. Natalie! Her tone was pleasantly surprised, and she trotted straight to Natalie. Natalie looked at her with a very indifferent expression. Who are you? Heather wiped the corner of her eyes. You have seen me before. Do you remember? I don't remember. I haven't never seen you before. Your 18-year-old coming of age ceremony was held at the hotel. I could not enter, so I watched you from a distance. You walked in front of me. There was only a few times when you were partying with some girls, and I sat next to you, Heather said. These years, Heather always tried her best to appear around Natalie. She thought that Natalie should remember her. In the end, Natalie was still very indifferent. Oh, I don't have any impression. At that time, Natalie was so beautiful. How could she care about Heather? She knew all the famous rich wives and ladies in Sea City. Those who did not know each other meant they had no identity and status, and were not worthy of her friendship. She did not even bother to remember their appearance and name. Heather was the one she despised, so even though they met several times, Natalie never cared about her. Natalie, this is your mother, your biological mother, Matthew said. Heather looked at her lovingly and expectantly, hoping for her to call her mother. Natalie, I am your mother. Natalie's expression remained unchanged. She looked at Heather quietly as if looking at a stranger. My poor daughter, you look so hurt. Look, how much weight you lost. You're all skin and bones. When I saw you from a distance last time, you looked better. Don't worry, Natalie. I would risk my life just to save you. Natalie took a step back to distance herself from Heather. Heather was stunned. Natalie! Oh, so you are my mother. Natalie laughed. The mother who was a mistress, shamelessly unmarried, gave birth to me and then sent me to the Yarn family as an adopted daughter? The mother who made me seem to have everything, but in the end, I got nothing. How can you say that about me? Did I misspoke? Chapter 1390. Although Heather was shameless, she could not bear the insult from her own daughter. I did this all for you, Natalie. If you follow me, I can't give you anything, but if you become the adopted daughter of the Yarn family, you will live a lavish life, Heather said. For me? But I still got nothing in the end. You didn't give me anything. What have you been doing for the past 20 years? Have you always been a mistress? How can you be so at ease? Do you have enough money? Do you have connections and resources? Now I'm in trouble and need you. What can you do but cry? I feel annoyed just looking at you. Moreover, Natalie did not intend to stop. As soon as I came in, I heard you talking about marrying Aram. If I was born in the Yarn family, my faith with Aram would always exist, and I wouldn't be Gale's substitute. It's all your fault. Natalie reached out and grabbed Heather's shoulder, shaking it vigorously. She hated everything. Hate Heather's humble background. Hate Heather for being incompetent and a mistress. Natalie, my good daughter, you and Mr. Lifting still has a chance. As long as you are willing to repent, he will protect you and save you. You can continue to be together. He put in a lot of hard work and effort to save you. He still loves you. Heather said. Natalie shook her head. You don't understand. He doesn't love me at all. He loves Gale, and the person he wants to marry is Gale.